Do you want to learn how to create a monochromatic color palette and discover how I made this poster? So in this video I will show you how to create a monochromatic color palette from scratch and make a poster like this. So let's start with the video. First of all, we need to understand what are monochromatic color palettes. And starting with the name, which is monochrome, which means single color, it refers to a color palette made by one single base hue, and to create a color palette we will alternate that base hue with tints by adding white and shades by adding black. And as all the color variations came from a single base hue, that will make that monochromatic color palettes will look cohesive and naturally work together. So now that we already know what is a monochromatic color palette, it's time to create our own color palette starting from scratch. And to successfully create a color palette based on monochromatic colors, we need to achieve balance and create contrast using the same hue. As if we not create that contrast, the design will look flat and boring. So the main goal is to create a dynamic range that provides enough distinction between elements while maintaining a cohesive look. First, we need to choose our base color. This base color will serve as the foundation of our color palette. As we will later see, we will modify it to create different variations of this color. The first step is to create shades by adding black. This will ensure that we add depth, contrast and emphasis on our design. The next step is to create tints by adding white. This will give us softer versions of the main color that we can later use to create contrast and highlight some elements of the design. Lastly but not least, we need to create contrast and balance. So we will check our color palette and see if we have a wide range of variations that will give us freedom and room to create contrast from light to dark. As if we don't have enough light or dark variations, our design will look plain without contrast, making it boring. Well, also, if we create too much contrast, it can disrupt the harmony of monochromatic color palettes. Now that we already know how to create a monochromatic color palette, let's see how to apply it to our real design. First of all, I have the color palette that I will use as a reference and isolate the part of the image I want to use for the design. Now I'm adding the title of the poster, which in this case is monochrome. And a pro tip when working with monochrome palettes is to pay attention on typographic hierarchy and use bold fonts to create more emphasis and contrast. Now I'm adding some filters to the image as I wanted to create some type of chrome effect. Another tip is to really focus on contrast, and to avoid our design look flat, it's important to create that contrast between the light tones and the dark tones. Now that I already have the chrome effect ready, I'm applying a gradient map with the desired colors and adjusting the filters. Also, it's important when working with monochrome palettes is to really pay attention on small details and create the sense of depth. In this case, I used shadows for the head to create that depth. Also, I wanted to play with dimension, and one part of the text is in front of the image and the other part is behind the image to create that sense of depth and dimension. At this point I felt that this design might look plain and boring, so that's why I decided to add some more extra elements and placed a green rectangle with the main color. I wanted to give a more brutalist effect and deconstruction style, so that's why I cut a part of the original image, in this case the eyes, and the idea is to make the borders look imperfect and also added some shadows to create more contrast between the original image and create focus. And lastly but not least, when working with that type of color palettes, as mentioned, we need to use other elements to create visual interest and differentiate each element. So that's why it's important to play with textures to make the design look more visually interesting. Hope you find this video useful and learn how to create a monochromatic color palette from scratch and incorporate in your designs. Please let me know in comments what you think about monochrome palettes and your thoughts about the video. Thanks for watching. I will appreciate a like, comment and subscribe for more graphic design content. See you in the next video. Ciao!